So, namaskar. So, today we have the third or fourth study group, and we'll continue with Ananda Sutram. We finished Sutra 2 last time, and so we'll go for Sutra 3 this time, for the third sutra. So, the third sutra is about the creation of the universe. So I'll first share some screen. Okay, so we are here on second sutra. So we have Thayo Siddhi Sanchare Pradisanchare Cho. Thayo Siddhi Sanchare Pradisanchare Cho. Purusha and Prakriti find their fulfillment in Sanchara, extraversial movement, and Pradisanchara, or introversial movement. So we had previously we had this slideshow here, and so in the slideshow we had this we had the slide here, and in this slide we see it all starts with a triangle, and here is written what is written there? Paramashiva, and here is Rajaguna, Tamaguna, and Sattva-guna. And so now this process here on this side is process of Sanchara. So we have Mahadahang Chitta, and then we have the creation of the physical universe. And then on the returning phase, this is the phase of the individuals, of the unit beings, all the way from unicellular beings to developed beings like us. And then in between we have like an explosion. So this is where the matter reaches maximum concentration, then either it can explode and some kind of a supernova explosion, or it can develop into living beings. So we'll go into all of these details later on. But so today we are talking about Sanchara and Pradisanchara. So the movement creating the universe is Sanchara, and the movement creating all the unit beings is called Pradisanchara. And so one is increasing the bondage of Purusha, and the other one is releasing the bondage. So let's read it. We can start with this one here. So is it too small, or it's you can read it? Yeah. So maybe Kalika, you can read this first purpose.
Sure. Yeah. The existence of any entity is known by the process of its activity, thought, or witnesship, of which witnesship belongs to Purusha, and the other two And the other two substantiating factors primarily belong to Prakriti. And so the fact of Prakriti, being the causal entity of the stream of action and thought, will be recognized only when she completely identifies herself with objectivity. This appropriation of objectivity by Prakriti depends on her ever-increasing sanchara, or decreasing pratisanchara, influence on Purusha. Prakriti's manifestation lies in the sanchara and the pratisanchara processes. In all these manifestations of Prakriti, Purusha exists not only as the material cause, but as the witness as well, in all states and conditions.
Thank you. So then in the commentary, Didi and Mitra, she goes into she explains it, and she explains it quite clearly here. Krishna, you want to say something, or shall I mute? So we have here so three things. We have action, and which is Prakriti is doing, and we have thought, and then we have witnessship. And so in the earlier sutras we saw that that Brahma is composed of Prakriti and Purusha. Purusha being the consciousness, Prakriti being the creative force. And Sutra number 2, so the first sutra is Shiva Shakti Atmakam Brahma. Purusha is Purusha and Prakriti. Brahma is composed of Purusha and Prakriti. And then Shakti sa Shiva sa Shakti is that Shakti, or the creative force, is controlled by the consciousness. So now here in this sutra, Sri Sandamurti says there's three things: there's action, there's thought, and there's witnessship. And Prakriti is responsible for action and thought, and Purusha is responsible for the witnessship. Now in the later sutra he will explain this in details. So the action and thought is the first thing. So there's a cosmic mind, and so that is the first thing which is created, is the cosmic mind. And then the cosmic mind will then materialize the action, or the creation of the actual universe. And Purusha is witnessing everything. Now, there is some interesting quote that I found here from the conscious universe, and so intelligence and consciousness. So let's a little bit go through this slide. We can ask questions a little bit later. I just want to a little bit introduce the subject first. So Devashish, the author of Conscious Universe, he spends a lot of time explaining that this universe has intelligence, and that we can see the intelligence from how complex everything is, but still functioning beautifully. And like a leaf comes out of the tree, and the tree grows, and it's all looks very simple, but actually very complex. And so there's an intelligence behind it, making everything orderly and making everything work. And then I found this quote from him. He says, "The vast ordered complexity of the cosmos from the Big Bang onward," Big Bang being the scientific theory closest to our creation theory, when considered in its entirety from subatomic to cosmic levels, can only come from an underlying intelligence far beyond human imagining, an intelligence that is cosmic in character, and that intelligence in turn can only come from consciousness, for without consciousness there can be no intelligence. So then comes my question, why is there consciousness behind the intelligence? So can somebody answer that? Any answers?
I can't say I have an answer, but the thought that comes to me is all of creation is consciousness informing itself of itself. So the purpose of being an intelligent entity would be nothing if not to be aware of it.
You mean that there must be awareness behind the intelligence?
Not that there must be, but that it wouldn't be known that it is intelligent unless it is conscious of it.
Right. Okay. Makes sense. There are many creation theories which suppose that the creation moves forward because of some kind of a random coincidence, that there's a random mutation, and that mutation is somehow beneficial, and that's how evolution happens. And so this theory is kind of saying that that is wrong. Things are not random. Rather, everything is moving in a beautiful way, pre-planned way, or everything is moving with a consciousness behind it. And so that's why things work out. Because if you would actually take the probabilities of some random mutation resulting in a change of a whole species, it's not very likely. And so there must be some other reason why the species are evolving and how nature is gradually changing. Okay, Krishna has a raised hand, so you can unmute Krishna.
Another question, but to answer your question about why there is a consciousness behind intelligence.
Okay.
I think Baba answered that. I'm not sure, but
Go ahead.
I think Baba answered that question. The first sutra, I say, we have to be substantiated. Substantiation is the reason why consciousness is behind the intelligence. Otherwise, everything will be in jeopardy. We wouldn't know anything.
Yeah, sure, but I'm just asking kind of from the other perspective.
Ah,
So, like,
okay.
yes, if you suppose that everything comes from consciousness, then yes, without consciousness there could be nothing. But if we take it from the other sense, why must there be consciousness behind intelligence? And I think the answer is that consciousness is something which is conscious of the process, whereas intelligence is just something that could be random. And so, like, if we think of the body, for example, the body is growing, and it's all functioning. So there's a mind behind it, but then there is also something which is making it work so well. There's something which is there's a benevolent entity behind everything. That's kind of the okay, I think we can move on. There's a question which is difficult to answer. Okay, so here this quote is also nice. So maybe Padma, you can read this one. Oh, this is actually the next sutra. Okay, but anyway, you can read Are you able to see it, or are you on your mobile?
I'm on my mobile, but I can see it, Dada.
Okay.
Okay.
So make it bigger.
Okay.
Sorry.
Okay. No. Very good. The physical universe, as scientists have long known, does not have a physical center, but it does have an ideational center, but it does have an ideational center. On the individual level, the center of the physical universe is the observer, the individual witnessing the individual witnessing the consciousness, or Jivatma. On the macroscopic level, the witnessing consciousness is known as Paramashiva or Purushottama, the supreme consciousness. But consciousness is one and indivisible, and these are only apparent distinctions, labels given to consciousness that change as our vantage point changes.
Thank you. Yeah, so this is from from Conscious Universe. So let's read the sutra. So we have also Vlad has joined. I think this is Vijay. But Vijay, are you able to speak, or do you need to remain silent? Okay, he may not be able to speak. So I'll speak this one myself. Paramashiva Purushottama Vishvasa Kendram. Supreme consciousness at the nucleus of the universe is known as Paramashiva or Purushottama. Purport. The trivalent Prakriti has been apparently crudifying the original Purusha through her own binding forces. This is one of the processes of her activity. Her other process being that by gradually relaxing the influence of her three attributes on a crude object, she regains the characteristic of Purusha, thus putting an end to her binding operation. The first named process of Prakriti is centrifugal and the other is centripetal. The Brahma Chakra or Srishti Chakra cosmic cycle is manifested through the combination of these various centrifugal and centripetal actions. The nucleus of the cosmic cycle is indeed the Svabhava, characteristic being of Purusha. The material cause of the entire Brahmachakra is Purusha or Shiva, and we shall call its nucleus Paramashiva or Purushottama. Now, this is important sutra, and it's important not only for understanding the creation theory, but also to understand kind of ideation. So why is Paramashiva important? Because it's because of this here. The nucleus of the cosmic cycle is indeed the Svabhava or characteristic being of Purusha. So Paramashiva in this role as the nucleus of the universe is kind of what we are moving around. So the idea here is that we had this slide of the cycle, triangles and then cycle. So we could also think of it like the electron moving around the nucleus of the atom, or the moon moving around the earth, or the earth moving around the sun. So you have like some central point, and then you have something moving around the central point. And so this idea is very helpful for spiritual practice, because then we can take that image, that visualization, and think of it, okay, I am moving as an individual, I am moving around a nucleus. And the nucleus is the Purusha, is the pure consciousness. And in the second chapter, we will learn that the consciousness is pure bliss, pure happiness. So we are moving around the nucleus of pure bliss. And then that movement, when we are going closer and closer to the nucleus, that is dominated by the vidya maya, or the centripetal force. And when we are moving away from nucleus, that is centrifugal movement. And in the cycle itself, in the creation cycle, because the cycle, I'll show you again the slideshow, because I can just show it here. So here you will see that sorry, I lost connection for a moment. Here you'll see that this is the creation of the universe. So it's coming from pure consciousness, and it's moving towards physical matter. So this movement from pure consciousness to physical matter is a movement of crudification. Consciousness is becoming matter. And like we saw in the Sutra number 2, that Shakti sa Shiva sha Shakti, that Shakti is the force of Shiva. It means that Shiva is allowing Shakti, or the creative force, to crudify Shiva, to crudify consciousness, to become the manifested universe. And then gradually, once the life forms are created, the influence of the creative force, or Prakriti, is becoming relinquished. Her permission to crudify the consciousness is gradually withdrawn, and the creative being and the beings, the unit beings, they become increasingly more and more subtle, more and more manifestation of consciousness in them, until we come to the human stage where we can actually feel the consciousness in our mind if we meditate. And so the human beings are in the special position of being able to transcend the cycle and become one with the consciousness again. And so that's why it's important to know what is the nucleus of the cycle. The nucleus is Shiva, which is depicted as the point within the triangle here. And so that's why it's important to know what is the nucleus of that cycle. And there's one more thing to be said, which is about the two forces. So let's take a look at that. Didhyana Mitra explains that in a very simple way, which is easy to understand. She sets it up here in plain words. So we have the centrifugal force away from the nucleus. In Sanskrit it is called avidya maya, the force of ignorance. And then we have the centripetal force towards the nucleus called vidya maya, the force of knowledge. And so now there are also spiritual practices dedicated to both of these forces. So there is called avidya tantra, or avidya practices, where the practitioner is doing meditation to gain control over matter. So these are all kind of practices to control others and to control matter, which could include, for example, kinetic movement through the mind. Means the mind is able to move objects, or it could include controlling other people's mind, kind of hypnosis, or not only hypnosis but also taking over someone else's mind. all kind of avidya practices, killing people with the mind, etc. So those are practices where you are using your mind to actually appropriate qualities of avidya maya. And so we do not support those in our practices, as they are going the wrong way. They are going away from the nucleus. And then we have the centripetal practices, which help us to move towards the nucleus. So those practices, they have Paramashiva, or the nucleus of the universe, as the goal. And so that's why the sutra is important, because it explains us what is the goal, we are moving around this nucleus of the universe, Paramashiva, and then we need to do spiritual practices which encourage the movement towards the nucleus, because the nucleus is pure bliss. And so if we want pure bliss, we need to go there. Now, in avidya maya, there's two expressions. So there's the vikshepi shakti and avarani shakti. So the vikshepi shakti is a force that degenerates the unit, and the other one is concealing. So, like you will see those two forces. Like, let's say you want to steal something, or let's say you want to lie, and then you will have to conceal. And or let's say you want to steal secretly, then you have to think, oh, I am alone, now I can steal. Whereas you are never alone, because the Supreme is always with you. So those two forces, they are dominant in when we are moving away from the consciousness. And then you have the Vidya Maya has also two forces. One is Samvit Shakti, or spiritual awakening. And so this is when you wake up that you need to do spiritual practice. Myself, for example, my spiritual awakening really started with myself saying aloud that I will never sleep again, and that woke me up. And then Hladini Shakti is the force that bestows happiness and bliss. So that's once you're already on the path and you start to enjoy the bliss. Okay. So any questions so far? No? No questions? So maybe if there's no questions, I think we can just stop at this point, and then next time we'll go into how the sanchara and pradishanchara will evolve, how the avidya maya, how the tamaguna is crucifying the consciousness, and how the universe is created, and how the unit beings are created, and all that. So next time we may go through more than one sutra. We may go through a few of them. So is that okay? Yeah? Any questions? No? Okay.
Thank you, Dada. Namaskar.
It's all very cosmic, it's difficult to ask questions at this point. Okay, all right. Yeah, thank you so much for the day.
Thank you, Dada.
See you next
Namaskar.
time. Yeah.